All right, let's kick off this deep dive. And, I think this one is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. We are going to be talking about conversation starters. And we're going to be looking at this cool podcast called Daily English Talk Podcast with Emma and Jack. And even if you're not actively trying to learn English as a second language, I think there's some really valuable things that we can all take away from this just to kind of, be more comfortable and confident, striking up a conversation with somebody new.
Yeah, for sure. And the cool thing about this podcast is they use these role plays to kind of demonstrate these different situations. And it's so relatable because, we've all been in those situations where we're like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so imagine this. You're in a coffee shop, right? And you're smelling the fresh brewed coffee and everything. You see somebody that you think you might want to talk to. And then you have that what do I say?
Yeah, the deer in the headlights.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. So Emma and Jack actually act this out, which is pretty cool, so you can kind of see it in action. But in this scenario, Emma goes up and says, "Hey, I don't think we've met before. I'm Emma." So simple and straightforward and friendly.
Yeah, it just kind of breaks the ice, right? Takes the pressure off.
Yeah, totally. And then Jack is like, "Oh, hey, I'm Jack. Nice to meet you." And then she hits him with the "Do you come here often?" Which, is a little bit cliche maybe, but there's a reason why it works so well.
It's that open-ended question, right? So it's not just like a yes or no. Mm-hmm. It gives them a chance to tell you something about themselves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, I come here all the time. I love their lattes or, whatever it might be.
I love that. It's not just about asking a question. It's about, prompting that conversation back and forth.
Yeah, sparking something.
Exactly. Okay, so let's switch gears now. Let's go from the coffee shop to the dreaded elevator ride.
Yeah.
You're in this tiny metal box with a stranger. And there's just this deafening silence.
The most awkward situation.
Oh my gosh, yes. How do you break the ice without feeling like a total weirdo?
Well, Emma and Jack, they got you covered. They show how something as simple as just saying, "How's your day going?" Can be a real lifesaver.
I like that. It's it's polite. It's acknowledging them.
Yeah, you're acknowledging them.
But it's not too much,
Not being too pushy.
Exactly. And they can share as much or as little as they want, in response. But what's interesting is that Emma takes it a step further. She notices that Jack is wearing these really cool shoes, and she actually compliments him on them. So do you think that's a good strategy, that little personal touch?
Oh, for sure. It shows that you're actually paying attention.
Yeah.
You're not just saying, some generic thing. You're actually present in the moment.
Right.
And noticing something about them.
Yeah, and it could be anything, right? It could be a cool pin that they're wearing or a book or...
Absolutely.
But it's about those little details.
It makes it more genuine.
Yeah, totally. And let's not forget the power of a smile, too.
Oh, a smile goes a long way. Even before you say anything, your body language, can really make the other person feel more comfortable.
Absolutely. So we've covered the coffee shop. We've covered the elevator. Let's talk about another situation that can be super nerve-wracking. The first day at a new job.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You want to make a good impression, but you're also in this, totally unfamiliar territory.
You don't know the ropes.
Exactly. So how do Emma and Jack handle this one?
Well, in their role play, Emma's the one that kind of takes the initiative. She goes up to Jack, who's been working there for a while, and introduces herself. And then she says, "How long have you been working here?"
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is such a great question. It's breaking the ice, but it's also showing that you're interested in, learning more about the place.
It's a subtle way of acknowledging their experience too, right? Hey, you've been here longer. I'm the newbie.
Exactly. And then she follows that up with, any tips for a newbie?
Mm-hmm.
Which we've all probably thought on our first day. But I love that she kind of puts it out there.
She makes it funny, too. It's not super serious.
When you're grilling him or anything.
Exactly. And you're getting valuable insights, too. You could potentially be avoiding some pitfalls, and you're building rapport with a colleague all at the same time.
Multitasking.
Right. So after listening to Emma and Jack kind of role play all these different scenarios, they boil it down to 3 key takeaways. Start with a simple greeting. Follow up with an easy question. And remember to smile and relax. It seems so straightforward, but I feel like a lot of people just overlook these basics.
I think we do. I think we overthink things, especially when we're nervous.
Yeah.
When we're out of our comfort zone.
Totally.
But they said, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just these simple little things.
Yeah. And I think what I really appreciate is that they emphasize that, you don't have to be perfect. It's more about, just putting yourself out there and making the effort to connect.
Absolutely. Even if you stumble over your words a little bit, where you feel a little awkward.
It's progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
I love that.
And you know what? Like any skill, the more you practice it, the more natural it's going to become.
So true. You know, as our listeners are thinking about these tips and these different scenarios, do you think it's important for them to consider how these conversation starters might work differently in different cultures? Because what's considered, you know, polite or friendly in one culture might be totally different in another culture.
Oh, yeah, that's a really great point. Like, for example, direct eye contact, which in some cultures is seen as, confidence and engagement. In other cultures, it could be perceived as aggressive or disrespectful.
So that's tricky, right? Like, how do you navigate those nuances?
I think it's about being observant and respectful. So, pay attention to how people are interacting. Like, what kind of body language are they using? What topics of conversation seem to be okay? And what are maybe off limits?
So it's like you're learning a new dance almost.
Yeah,
You have to understand the steps before you can really flow.
for sure.
So it's not just about the words you say. It's about understanding those like unspoken rules.
The unspoken rules, exactly.
So for our listeners who are maybe on their own language learning journey, or even those who just want to feel more comfortable, striking up conversations in any setting, what would be like your top piece of advice?
I would say embrace the journey and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because every interaction, even the ones that feel a little awkward, is a chance to learn and grow.
I love that. It's like shifting your perspective from, fearing mistakes to seeing them as valuable learning experiences.
Absolutely. And remember, everybody feels awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially in new situations. It's normal.
It's like that saying, the only way to do it wrong is to not do it at all.
Exactly.
So true.
So go out there, try those conversation starters, see what happens. You might be surprised by the connections you make.
This has been so interesting. We've learned so much from Emma and Jack about how to approach those initial interactions with more confidence. Before we wrap things up, I'm curious, what are some conversation starters that you find particularly effective? Or, maybe even intriguing?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me think. I really like asking those open-ended questions that get people talking about their passions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe what's something you're really excited about right now, or what's a book or movie that's had a big impact on you? Something like that. Those kinds of questions just spark really interesting conversations.
I love that. It's like you're giving them permission to share a little piece of themselves.
Exactly.
And you know what I've noticed sometimes? The most unexpected conversation starters can actually lead to the best conversations. Like I once struck up a conversation with someone in the grocery store just because they were wearing a t-shirt from my favorite band.
No way.
And we ended up talking for like forever about music and travel. It was so random, but so fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It just shows you that you never know where a conversation might lead.
Right.
So you got to be open to those possibilities. Be curious.
Totally. So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Every conversation is an opportunity. It's a chance to learn something new, to connect with another person, and to expand your world. So whether you're chatting with someone you just met or having a deep conversation with a close friend, just embrace the power of conversation. It can really enrich your life in so many ways.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And you know what? Even if it's a little awkward at first, it's okay. We all have those moments. What matters is that you're trying. You're putting yourself out there, and you're open to connecting with other people.
So true. All right, listeners, keep those conversations flowing. And until next time, happy chatting.